Let's Talk Money.
Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Money, your weekly personal finance session with me, Surabhi Upadhyay. Now, the festive season is in full bloom. It's a time when we like to splurge and reward ourselves, and while we get active with our credit card swipes or those QR codes on our phones, the digital scamsters out there are also getting quite active, trying to come up with novel ways, newer ways to defraud unsuspecting customers with respect to online transactions, payments, and so much more. Today, we have two experts, two bankers joining us on the show who will help us sort this out, who will give us some advice, some tips on how we can keep our hard-earned money protected and what to do in case, in the event, unfortunate event, that the fraud actually happens. Manish Agarwal, Head of Credit Intelligence at HDFC Bank, is joining in. And we have Mr. Durgadas Rege, Chief of Internal Vigilance at RBL Bank, to help us wrap our heads around this whole concept of preventing bank frauds and also what to do, as I said, in case that unfortunate event actually happens. And a little later on the show, we will give you some smart festive spending advice as well. When you're looking to reward yourself, how do you do it without really bursting the bank or bursting your wallet, so to speak? But let's get started on this very serious issue of cybercrime, financial frauds, and transactions that could be very, very susceptible to scamsters who are out there. Thank you so much, Manish, for joining me in the studios. We have Mr. Rege joining us on the digital means as well, because we are talking about digital frauds, right? Gentlemen, your first thoughts, and I was looking at some data that the Reserve Bank of India actually puts out as well, where if we look at it, I think overall the trend of the number of frauds, the amounts involved, it's coming down, but it's still pretty large, isn't it? Manish, floor is yours, so kick it off.
So thanks, Surabhi, first of all, having us here. And I think the topic is apt. And I would only say that when you talk about the money, here the money secured and saved is the money earned. So as far as the fraud numbers that you're talking about, if you see in earlier days, it was not about the frauds which were happening from the customers. Most of the frauds which were getting reported earlier were pertaining to a fraud which have happened on the bank. While these numbers have grown, you also have to see that from the numbers of transactions perspective and how the digital boom has taken place. Okay, those have also gone substantially. But having said that, that's not the point. The point here is even a singular customer, if it is getting defrauded, okay, that's a crime. And it cannot be condoned or taken in the percentage of a such percentage or a such bips as a number. So the issue is very, very grave. Now, if you have to see, when you talk about these frauds, and all along we look at the newspaper, articles, many of the people you will be knowing, they have fallen prey to the frauds.
Yeah.
But what is the anatomy of the fraud? If you see, most of these frauds are the digital frauds which have happened. It's not because there is a vulnerability in the system. And when I'm talking system, I'm talking about an ecosystem. Okay. All these frauds have happened because the fraudsters have exploited the emotions of the customer.
Yeah.
And here the customer is the most vulnerable.
Right.
Okay. So, and as I keep talking about, they use all social engineering techniques and the emotions that they exploit to defraud the customer. It's very simple.
So this is an important point that you're making, that frauds now are not happening because the banking system is failing. It's happening because the scamsters are able to play with our minds. Before we actually, get down to the specifics and how banks look at this, I just want to put out the data. If we talk about the types of frauds that we saw in FY24, let's pull up the RBI numbers. So the number in question for the purpose of this conversation is basically, internet fraud, so to speak, digital or internet frauds, because fraud in loan advances could be because of other issues. Scamsters in terms of the way the loans were given out, or, that's a separate matter. But if you look at it, card frauds or internet frauds, that number in FY24 was just under 1,500 crore rupees. That's still a large number, 1,500 crores. That would be impacting lots of customers out there. So yes, that is something that needs to be definitely discussed. You're seeing the other numbers there, off-balance sheet deposits, etc. But what we are cash frauds could also be there, check bouncing, etc. Those are different kinds of frauds. But in this show today, we are trying to address the internet and credit card-based frauds that most of us can be susceptible to if we're not alert. Mr. Rege, let me come to you, sir. What Manish is saying, that this is more about the scamster getting to play on our mind, and that's what causes the fraud. Your thoughts?
Yes. Yeah. So I'll just give one example how these frauds happen. One day, you get up in the morning and you see that you have been added in a WhatsApp group, and you feel, "Arey, have been added in a WhatsApp group." But this WhatsApp group where you have been added is to defraud you. But they lure you saying that your money will be multiplied and you will get a good returns if you invest in this. So these investment scams. So here I want to specify that genuine person also should be cautious when they are being dragged into such type of WhatsApp groups or such type of frauds. Now, as a layman, I would be, or rather anybody would be happy that today my 2 lakhs will be becoming 20 lakhs in a few days. But that is not so. The same way as Manish rightly said, this is the emotional part, and that is what is greed that takes over our actual requirement or actual, how you manage your finance. That is one part. Secondly, I would also like to emphasize on, apart from greed, there is one more aspect which we need to dwell upon as far as emotional and psychological views of a genuine person is concerned, and that is called threat.
Yeah.
And as a threat, I would suggest that there is something what is called as digital arrest. So, people in this type of frauds, the fraudsters lure you by saying that I am from a government agency and your card means Aadhaar card or your PAN card has been compromised, and through which there have been transactions which have happened, or a parcel has come. So these type of frauds also are very important, and which we need to tackle with.
No, absolutely.
And,
absolutely.
There have been several other examples on this.
Yes, absolutely, sir. So let's actually take this forward. You have identified two, key emotions that scamsters play on. One is greed. The other is fear. They resort to threat to get us to do, the kind of transactions that we should not be doing. Manish, come in on this, because in banker language, I think you folks distinguish it in two types of fraud, something known as account takeover and something that is an actual scam. Can you elaborate on the types of frauds that are there?
Surabhi, you got it right. So actually, when the entire transaction flow is done by the customer himself, because he is under the influence of the fraudsters who has exploited his emotion, and he is not sharing the OTP, he himself is authorizing all the transaction. That is a perfect scam. Because if I tell you and I lure you to do some transfer to this particular account, everything is done by you.
Which is the kind of WhatsApp groups that Mr. Rege just described.
Yes.
I wake up one morning, I'm part of a WhatsApp group, and I'm supposed to make X amount of return in 3 days, right?
Absolutely. And if you see, in fact, we have observed the cases where the customer have been doing those investment party to that investment scheme for 15 days, 20 days, 30 days. And when they see that the return, it has got a substantial return, and they get to know when they want to withdraw the money, and the fraudster asks more money, and fraudsters ask more money. Then when they're not able to withdraw. So that's where this scam piece comes in.
Sure.
And the second one, which is called an account takeover in a technical language, but for a simple layman, if you have or one has shared his OTP, credential, password, ID, that's where these cases, the transaction is being performed by the fraudster. So that's where we differentiate. While the account takeover, and I will take a bit of a time here from the construct and the design perspective. On an account takeover, a lot of new variable comes in, where the prevention is bit more easy. But when it's a case of a scam, it is very, very difficult, because let's say even if the customers have been called and asked about the genuineness of the transaction, he will say, yes, I'm doing, because he is not realizing at that moment
that it's a scam.
So
it's really important. So we now know the two different type of mischievous activities are at play. One where we ourselves willingly become party and we ourselves do the transaction, which are real scams, investment scams. The other is obviously where we unknowingly share our details like OTP or password or PIN. Now, we all understand that in the best case scenario, we shouldn't be doing that. But what is the recourse? So tell us this, Mr. Rege. Also, what are the latest scams? I mean, I got a call the other day saying some parcel has come, and I almost thought that have I ordered something online? I realized I've not ordered anything from any of the e-commerce players. So what are the latest scams that are in the market that we should be aware of? Let's address that first.
Yeah. So as I said just now, these are the two important scams or the frauds that have been going around in the market. One is this investment scams, and secondly, where parcel scams. But predominantly, if you see, earlier also there were some scams pertaining to deep fake scams, where the fraudster used to fake the identity of your friend or your relatives and used to lure you for transferring money. Primarily, investment scams have taken a lot of toll from genuine people. If I have to give another example, if you see, during this pandemic, when everybody was panicky to take the vaccinations and all, the fraudsters were very shrewd enough to design a website or a link so that they can perpetrate a fraud and defraud a person under the pretext of giving vaccination or facilitating vaccination.
Yeah.
So these frauds, this type of frauds are becoming, very prevalent now in the banking industry and the financial world.
No, absolutely, and frauds end up changing their shape and form with the seasons, right? Whatever is the in thing, the scamsters kind of go with that. Which also brings me to the fact that right now we're in the midst of festive season. So Manish, now let's come to the tips that people should keep in mind. Of course, we all know that we're not supposed to share our ID and password. The thing is, it happens. What is the recourse? What do you do in the event this happens? And how do you dispute it? Sometimes there can be disputes with the bank as well on this as well. So what happens once I realize, oops, there was a mistake and the money is gone from my account?
So very simple thing, Surbhi. First of all, you have to take a pause. You means as a customer, we have to take a pause. Please understand there is no urgency. There is nobody who's sitting on your head and saying that if you will not do this transaction in 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, something is going to happen. There is no law enforcement agency who's after your life on the digital way and going to help you or going to arrest you. There are no such offer which are so unbelievable that a worth of a 1 lakh goods you are getting in 10,000 rupees. Please don't fall prey to this. Okay?
Yeah.
Because these fraudsters have taken this as a profession.
Yeah.
Okay? So, what we need to do is don't believe on unbelievable offer.
Sure.
I'm asking you to not to believe on unbelievable.
Sure.
Second particular thing, please take a pause. The pause which comes after you feel or after you realize that you have been cheated, please advance it.
Correct.
If you're going to do any transaction, it's okay. It may take 2 more minutes. Nothing is going to happen.
But think about it
Just
first.
take a pause.
Yeah.
Don't transfer the money to the unknown people.
Absolutely.
Okay? In at any cost. Please verify the genuineness. And if you do these two things,
Yeah.
the most of the things, because that's the awareness which has to take precedence over everything, and prevention is better than cure.
Sure.
The last one, once you have been defrauded, I think the two simple things which I would strongly advise our customers and every citizen of the country to do is first call up your bank, ensure that your account card is blocked.
Right.
Immediately.
Right.
And then call up 1930. It's a cyber security helpline. Okay. A lot of work has been done by RBI and the government. Ministry of Home Affairs has put in a lot of efforts on this.
Right.
They have created a portal, log in a complaint, use that golden hour, golden 30 minutes, first 30 minutes, because that's where probably your money can be saved if it has already been departed from your account.
If you could just elaborate on the number and how this mechanism works, why it's so important to call in that 30-minute window on this number.
Ministry of Home Affairs has instituted this Cybersecurity Coordination Center, which is called I4C. They have launched this particular helpline. This helpline 1930 is equipped by 24/7. If you call up those numbers, your communication or a complaint is immediately recorded. They will ask certain information regarding what account, where the frauds have happened, what is the information that the customer had, where the money had gone. Then they relate on a real-time basis to the respective banks where the money would have gone. and the respective banks take an immediate action. That is where this channelization, because once the fraud is done and money is out from the customer's account, what can be done is only to stop the flow of money.
Okay.
And that's where this system has been working fantastically well, and the government is doing a lot of efforts and putting a lot of efforts on this.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, I think this was a very, very helpful conversation. Thank you for joining in and enlightening our viewers on how they can prevent fraudsters getting the better of them. And of course, in case this actually happens in that unfortunate event, what's your immediate recourse and what you should keep in mind? Thank you for joining in. We do have to take a very quick break on the show right now. But now that we've understood how to keep ourselves safe while transacting online, the other part is how to spend responsibly. So you enjoy the festive season, but don't burst your wallet. Back with that in just a minute.
Let's talk money